Welcome back, everyone, to English for Specific Purposes, Level B1. We are your hosts. I'm Mr. Daryl.
And I'm Ms. Thათია.
And today we are going to talk about sociology.
A very interesting topic again, but I think that we have talked about sociology a little bit, and now we are going to extend on the topic, right?
That's right.
გამარჯობა, მე თათია ვარ, ეს კი დერილია. კეთილი იყოს თქვენი დაბრუნება ჩვენს ტელესკოლაში. როგორც გახსოვთ, ჩვენ ძალიან ბევრ საინტერესო საკითხზე ვისაუბრეთ. წინა გაკვეთილზე დავიწყეთ საუბარი სოციოლოგიაზე. სწორედ ამ თემას გავაგრძელებთ დღესაც, მაგრამ ვიდრე უშუალოდ გაკვეთილზე გადავიდოდეთ, მოდით შევხედოთ ჩვენი გაკვეთილის გეგმას.
Today we're going to open up with an introduction to the topic, and then we will have a vocabulary list for you. And then we will move on to the reading text itself, which is about community service, and then we'll have a look at the grammar, as usual, move on to a summary of the whole thing, and give you some homework.
ჩვენს გაკვეთილს მცირე შესავლით დავიწყებთ, შემდეგ გაგაცნობთ ახალ სიტყვებს, შემდეგ წავიკითხავთ ძალიან საინტერესო ტექსტს, ამას მოყვება გრამატიკა, შემდეგ შევაჯამებთ გაკვეთილს და ბოლოს დავასრულებთ საშინაო დავალებით. Let's get started.
Let's start.
Mr. Daryl, what do you think the qualities of a decent citizen are?
I would say someone who's respectful, someone who is collaborative with the people around him, who pays attention and works for the community itself.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that the qualities of a decent citizen is like fairness, being law-abiding. Yes, I think that this is a person who follows the rules, right? And who is able to do something good to the community, right?
If I may add something, being interested in the democratic process as well, so someone who pays attention to what's happening around him and knows what's going on.
Yes, absolutely right. Okay. Now I think that we can look at the first set of vocabulary we have, and the first word we have is courtesy. Courtesy is a noun, and in Georgian it means თავაზიანობა. Mr. Daryl, I need your help, definitely.
Yes, courtesy is polite behavior. It's behavior when you're trying to be understanding of someone else and you behave in a way that's good for them.
Yeah, I think that we should treat each other with courtesy, right?
Yes, definitely.
Courtesy is a noun, and in Georgian it means თავაზიანობა. Courtesy, თავაზიანობა. Let's say it together.
Courtesy.
So the next word is tolerance. Tolerance is a noun, and in Georgian it is tolerantობა. Mr. Daryl, can you tell me what tolerance is and generally what kind of people are tolerant?
Tolerance is being accepting of people who are different from you and who have different ideas from you. And the people who are tolerant are, open-minded people.
Yes, who can just understand others and understand and accept different ideas. Well, tolerance is a noun, and in Georgian it means tolerantობა. Tolerance, tolerantობა. Let's say it together.
Tolerance.
And our next word is generosity. Generosity is a noun, and in Georgian it means გულუხობა. Mr. Daryl, how would you define this word in English?
When you're generous and you have generosity in you, you behave in a very giving way to someone else, perhaps giving them more than they expected even.
Yes, and I think that it's a very good quality, right, when you are generous. And the quality, generosity, is also a valuable thing in a person, right?
Yes.
Generosity is a noun, and in Georgian it means გულუხობა. Generosity, გულუხობა. Let's say it together.
Generosity.
Okay, and the next word is charity. Charity is a noun, and in Georgian it means ქველმოქმედება. Mr. Daryl, can you define the word for us?
I'd love to. Charity is when you give either food or money or some other kind of good to people who need it, and it can also be an organization that does this.
Yes, I think that we should do a lot of charity. Yes, if we can help, we should help others, right?
Definitely. There's a lot of people who are in need of help.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. So charity is a noun, and in Georgian it means ქველმოქმედება. Charity, ქველმოქმედება. Let's say it together.
Charity.
And the next word is compassion. Compassion is a noun, and in Georgian it means თანაგრძნობა. One more good quality, Mr. Derill, right? Can you define it for us?
I'd love to. Compassion is when you have a strong feeling or desire to understand the sadness or difficulty that other people are feeling.
Yeah, a very important quality, I think, right? So compassion is a noun, and in Georgian it means თანაგრძნობა. Compassion, თანაგრძნობა. Let's say it together.
Compassion.
And the next word is integrity. Integrity is a noun, and in Georgian it means პატიოსნება. Mr. Derill, can you define the word for us? Is it the same as honesty?
It's very close to honesty. Well said. Integrity is when you have principles that you won't change and that you regard as the things that make you who you are and something that you will not break for anyone.
So we have an example here. He was regarded as a man of absolute integrity. So does it mean that he was an honest man? He had this valuable quality?
Indeed, it means someone with strong moral principles.
Okay, very interesting. Integrity is a noun, and in Georgian it means პატიოსნება. Integrity, პატიოსნება. Let's say together.
Integrity.
Okay, and I think that it's time to practice and check how well we remember the words. ახლა ეკრანზე თქვენ ხედავთ განმარტებას და ჩვენ ერთად უნდა შევარჩიოთ სწორი სიტყვა ამ განმარტებისთვის. Let's get started. Mr. Derill, will you read the first definition and I'll have a try?
I'd love to. So, willingness to accept behavior and beliefs that are different from your own, although you might not agree with or approve of them. What do you think that is?
I think that I know this word. I said that if you accept different ideas and behavior, you are a tolerant person. So it might be tolerance.
Excellent. Let's check.
Let's check. And I was right.
Well done.
Okay, now let's move on to the next definition, and here it is. The giving of money, food or help to those who need it, or an organization that does this. And I think that we both know the answer. We talked a lot about it.
It's charity.
So charity is when you help others as you can, right? You provide any kind of help that is necessary for
Indeed.
others. Okay. And the next definition?
I'd love to read it for you, Ms. Thათია. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles that you refuse to change.
Mr. Derill, I think that I don't have an answer to this question. So can you help me?
I would love to. This is integrity.
Let's check. And you're right, absolutely right. Okay, now let's move on. The next statement is polite behavior or a polite action or remark. And I remember the word. I think that it was courtesy.
Courtesy
Courtesy?
is correct.
Yes,
Well
it's
done.
right. Okay, now let's move on. And the next definition is a strong feeling of sympathy and sadness for other people's suffering or bad luck and desire to help. And I remember you defined the word, and it was compassion.
Very well.
You're right.
Well said.
We are right, okay? And I think that the final word is left, and it's absolutely obvious, but let's still read it. A willingness to give help or support, especially more than is usual or expected, and this is generosity. And we are done with this part of the lesson, right? We have to move to a new section. And what is the new section, Mr. Derill?
We're moving on to our reading text of today.
And I think that we have to learn some new words before we read the text.
Let's get to it.
ახლა კი კითხვის სწავლებაზე გადავიდეთ, მაგრამ ვიდრე უშუალოდ ტექსტს წავიკითხავდეთ, მოდით შევისწავლოთ რამოდენიმე სიტყვა, რომელიც ამ ტექსტის უკეთესად გაგებაში დაგვეხმარება. Let's start. Let's look at the first word, and the first word we have is benefit. Benefit here is a verb, and in Georgian it means სარგებლის მიღება. Mr. Derill, I think that I have to ask you for help again.
Definitely. So a benefit is when you are helped by something, basically.
Okay. So we have an example. How can we benefit those who most need our help? So it means, what can we do good to the people who need our help? Am I right?
Exactly. What can we do to help them to do something or to achieve something.
Okay, so benefit is a verb, and in Georgian it means სარგებლის მიღება. Benefit, სარგებლის მიღება. Let's say together.
Benefit.
Okay, and our new word is volunteer. Volunteer is a noun, and in Georgian it means მოხალისე. Mr. Derill, what kind of people can be described as a volunteer?
Well, very generous people. And what they do is they provide their help or services for free in order to help someone else.
Without any benefits, right?
They might not get any benefits, but they will nonetheless help.
Great. Volunteer is a noun, and in Georgian it means მოხალისე. Volunteer, მოხალისე. Let's say together.
Volunteer.
And the next word is labor. Labor is a noun, and in Georgian it means შრომა. Mr. Derill, is the same as work, or how can you define the word?
Definitely, it's a synonym of work. It's practical work, especially work that requires hard effort, heavy effort.
I got it. So labor is a noun, and in Georgian it means შრომა. Labor, შრომა. Let's repeat. Labor. And the next word on our list is disability. Disability is a noun, and in Georgian it means ქმედუნარობა. Mr. Derill, well, how can you define the words?
Well, I would say it's when you have an injury or a illness that stops you from doing something the normal way that you probably do it.
That prevents you from doing things that we generally are able to do. Okay, disability is a noun, and in Georgian it means ქმედუნარობა. Disability, ქმედუნარობა. Let's repeat together.
Disability.
Okay, and our next word is welfare. Welfare is a noun, and in Georgian it means კეთილდღეობა. Mr. Derill, can you define the word for us?
Sure. Welfare is the physical and mental happiness or enjoyment of a person.
Great. So welfare is a noun, and in Georgian it means კეთილდღეობა. Welfare, კეთილდღეობა. Let's say it together. Welfare. Our next word is virtue. Virtue is a noun, and in Georgian it means ღირსება, სატნოება. Mr. Derill, I think that I need your help to define the word.
This is the moral quality in a person, or when they are especially morally good. This is a virtuous person. It is the quality of having virtue.
And here we have an example. Patience is a virtue. So can we consider that patience is a virtue?
Yes, we can. Without patience, you're less likely to be successful.
Yes, absolutely right. So virtue is a noun, and in Georgian it is ღირსება, სატნოება. Virtue, ღირსება, სატნოება. Let's say together. Virtue. Mr. Derill, I think that we have finished with the words and it's time to go to the text. But before we go to the text, let's have a small talk. Have you ever done any volunteering work, Mr. Derill?
Yes, I have. I remember very clearly in Toronto, I was taking in donations for a charity service, so I was helping them with that.
Oh, so interesting. I would love to do such kind of work, but I haven't had an opportunity yet. But I hope that one day I will be able to get involved in volunteering work.
I think even if you've tried donating clothes or something.
Oh yes, I have. I do it very often. We collect food and clothes for children who don't have parents, for orphans, and we always take it to them. So I think that I've done something good. I've done some kind of charity in my life.
That's very virtuous of you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's move on and read the text and find out why generally people do volunteering. Community service is a form of volunteering. It's giving time to help other people who are less fortunate. Usually, these people don't have enough money or are in poor health. Services may be provided for individuals or for institutions such as schools or hospitals. For example, some volunteers tutor children who need help in their studies in summer school programs. A lot of volunteers may also work in hospitals. For instance, they donate time to visiting patients who have no relatives or run errands for busy doctors and nurses. I have heard of some volunteers reading to the blind or working with children with disabilities. There are many types of volunteering opportunities too. Sometimes volunteers do manual labor like helping build a house or planting trees in a local park. It could also be something very simple, such as providing transportation for people who cannot drive.
Community service is pretty much due to something called altruism. In general, altruism is concern for others. In other words, it's the opposite of thinking of yourself. Many cultures consider caring for the welfare of others as a virtue. It's different than feeling that you need to do something. You're not simply doing something just because you have to. It's not a duty.
Altruism is helping someone, maybe even someone you don't know, just because you want to. To illustrate this, if you were to give up a day to build a house for a less fortunate family that you may never meet, this is called altruism. It has nothing to do with you. Rather, it's all about someone else. Other than feeling good, you, the volunteer, don't really benefit in any major way. It's been an area of interest for sociologists and psychologists for many years. Okay, it's a very interesting phenomenon, isn't it? And we all have this feeling that we want to do something good to others, right?
And it's rare to see that expressed in people sometimes. When you find a truly altruistic person, you feel great just being with them.
Yeah, really. But now, Mr. Derill, I think we have to check how well we remember the text. So we have to read the sentences and decide if the sentences are true or false. ახლა კი ეკრანზე ჩვენ ვიხილავთ წინადადებებს და მოდით ერთად შევეცადოთ მივხვდეთ, რამდენად შეესაბამება ეს წინადადებების სიმართლეს. თუ წინადადება სიმართლეს შეესაბამება, ვამბობთ true. თუ წინადადება არ შეესაბამება სიმართლეს, ვამბობთ false. Now let's try and let's look at the first statement, and the first statement is community service is always mandatory. What do you think, Mr. Derill? Is it right or wrong?
I'm going to have to say that that is false.
And I also agree with you. It's definitely false because we read in the text community service is volunteering, so it's not mandatory, of course. And here is our next statement. Mr. Derill, can you read the statement for us?
Community service may include hard work done manually.
And I think that this is true because we said that it can include some manual work. Okay, and let's check. We are right, it's true. And here is the proof sentence. Sometimes volunteers do manual labor like helping build a house or planting trees in a local park. So we were right.
Excellent.
Okay, and here is the next statement. Volunteers often help people who have some kind of health problems. And I think that this is true.
I think you're right, Miss Thათია. Let's check.
Let's check. And this is true because we read, I have heard of some volunteers reading to the blind or working with children with disabilities.
I'll read the next one.
Okay, you're welcome, you can.
Altruism is when you have a desire to do something beneficial for others. Is it true or false?
I think it's true.
Let's check.
Let's check. And I was right.
And the reason for
And
that?
the reason for that is the following. Altruism is helping someone, maybe even someone you don't know, just because you want to. And our next statement is the following. Altruists always expect something in return for their kindness. What do you think?
That's actually the opposite of what an altruistic person is. I'd say it's false.
Yes, they don't expect anything in return, and it's false. You are right, Mr. Derill, and we can see the proof. Other than feeling good, you, the volunteer, don't benefit.
Mm-hmm. And that's what makes them so pleasurable to be around. Yeah. They do things without expecting things in return.
Of course. And I think that we have finished with this part, and it's time to move to
grammar.
Okay, and let's look at these sentences we have. A lot of volunteers may also work in hospitals. And another sentence is, it could be something very simple, such as providing transportation for people who cannot drive. And we have some words highlighted here. This is may and could. A lot of volunteers may also work in hospitals. Does this sentence show that the speaker is sure of what he is saying,
No,
or
it
does
doesn't.
not?
Not at all. It shows that he's unsure and he's kind of showing probability.
Yes, you are right. And let's look at the next sentence. It could be something very simple, such as providing transportation for people who can't drive. Mr. Derill, do you mean that we are going to talk about modal verbs of probability today?
That is exactly what we're going to go to right now. So, we have modals of probability today. Some modals are used to express how certain a speaker is of something. Let's study the forms. Must. Let's take the word must, a very useful word. Use must to say, based on some evidence, that there is very strong likelihood that something is true. Here's an example. Many of you have the experience of second language immersion. You must have strong views on the topic. So if you've done something before, for example, you probably have a perspective or a view on it. Now, let's take the words might, may, and could. Use might, may, or could to say that there's a good chance that something is true. Here's an example. It might be a good place to study. If you're looking at, let's say, a library room, it looks quiet. Yes, it might be a good place to study. There might be people that come by and make a loud noise, but your expectation is that it will be a good place to study. Could is also used to express just one possibility of many. Here's an example to make that clear. His volunteer placement could be in a hospital or maybe in a school. So this is showing how this person who's volunteering somewhere might be placed in a hospital or might be placed in a school. He doesn't know for sure.
And I think we have to practice and see how well we can understand the grammar topic Mr. Derill has talked about, right? ახლა კი ეკრანზე იხილავთ წინადადებებს და ჩვენ ერთად უნდა ავარჩიოთ სწორი ვარიანტი. Okay, let's start. Mr. Derill, will you do me a favor and read the first sentence?
I'd love to. Here's the first sentence. You might or must be able to volunteer at the animal sanctuary. They sometimes need more help. What's the correct choice here, Ms. Thათია?
I think that it should be might.
Let's check.
And I'm right.
Perfect.
Okay. Now the next example is
Jana worked for 16 hours straight. She must or could be exhausted. What do you think, Ms. Thათია?
I think that if a person has worked for 16 hours straight, he must be exhausted. I'm quite sure about that. And I'm right.
Perfect.
And the next sentence is, Peter may or could be at the mall, the park, or even at work. I have no idea. So it means that I'm not sure. Yeah. So which modal verb do I have to use here?
Very good point. Look at this. There's a few choices given. He could be at the mall, he could be at the park, or he could even be at work. It has to be could be.
Okay, let's check, Mr. Derill, and you're absolutely right. Okay. Now let's move on to the next sentence. Kenneth must or may be really upset about his test score. He got an F. So if you get an F, you are definitely for sure upset. So I think here we should use must. Am I right, Mr. Derill?
I agree.
Yeah, and I'm right. Okay, I think that I can cope with these modals. Okay, and Mr. Derill, I think that we have come to the end of the lesson and it's time to summarize.
So, Ms. Thათია, if you remember at the beginning, we had a look at vocabulary related to sociology and in particular altruism as well. From there, we did a reading about community service, which brought up a lot of interesting topics to think about. And we looked at grammar in the end, modal verbs of probability.
It was very interesting lesson, I think, right? ეხლა კი შევაჯამოთ დღევანდელი გაკვეთილი. გაკვეთილის დასაწყისში ჩვენ გავეცანით ახალ სიტყვებს, შემდეგ წავიკითხეთ ტექსტი, ხოლო შემდეგ ვისაუბრეთ გრამატიკაზე. ახლა კი დროა დავალებაზე გადავიდეთ. What is the homework for us today?
We've got a great question. It's related to the topic that we spoke about today. Write about something beneficial that you have done for the community that you belong to.
And I think that we will read a lot of interesting stories, right?
Yes, I'm sure there's a lot of different things we haven't even imagined about how people are helping in the communities they live in.
Yeah, so we are looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But where can people upload their homework, Mr. Derill?
There's an address on the screen. You can upload your homework to that address. You can also find a model answer there.
Great information. Tħolt davaleba ekranze mititebul misamartze gamogzawnot. So I think it's time to finish our today's lesson, Mr. Derill. But I think that we have a lot of interesting topics ahead.
Next time, I think I'm looking forward to that topic in particular. It seems to be very interesting.
Okay, let's leave it as a secret, right? So stay with us and keep on learning. So goodbye.
Until next time, goodbye.